The Oblivion Remaster has been the talk of the town, and it's no wonder. Its sudden announcement and subsequent release is an event that breathed new life into the existing fanbase, and it also opened the door, or an Oblivion gate, for a lot of new players that haven't experienced the game before. Though most of the responses and discourse around the game has been overwhelmingly positive, and I think deservedly so, there have been a few things that have sparked controversy right off the bat and resulted in some heated debates around the internet. But even with all of that, it hasn't actually hurt the game in any way. People that had some issues just modded them out and moved on. Though I myself am very positive about this release and I've really been enjoying playing the game, there are a few things that I've noticed that don't really make sense to me, or I guess I just don't really understand why they would go out of their way to change them. It seems that in the remaster, female characters and depictions of women in general have been noticeably toned down or even censored. While they may seem like small things if you come across them, and I don't actually think they ruined the game, if you look at the bigger picture and how many things were affected by these particular changes, you'll start to notice a bit of a pattern that is perhaps setting a precedent and a new standard for future Elder Scrolls games and really games in general. Unfortunately, I think that a lot of these changes were made while ignoring the deeper context of the world, and it's not entirely clear what the purpose of making these changes was. There definitely was some sort of a purpose, because it cannot be a coincidence that all of these things were changed, but again, it's just not clear because there is a bit of inconsistency there as well. Today we're going to talk about the changes and some of the censorship affecting female characters in the game, and the kind of message that perhaps unintentionally or maybe intentionally it sends. Before we get started, hi, my name is Angelika, and I'm planning to do a sort of a special live stream soon to celebrate 100k. This is going to be kind of like a Q&A style live stream. We haven't done one of those since before I had even less than 20k subscribers, so I thought that it would be a really good time to repeat that. But before we can do the stream, a very special package has to arrive, so stay tuned for that. Now, in my last video, I noticed maybe one or two subtle things when analyzing the clothing in the game that kind of surprised me in terms of the changes that were made and why would they have changed that. Some pieces used to be a bit more off-shoulder, for example. Others accentuated the curves and the figure of your character a lot more. They weren't afraid to show a little bit more skin in something low-cut. That said, I don't think that the original version of Oblivion was ever particularly out there or sexy. Sure, their clothes may have appeared more flattering, but I thought that it was all very reasonable and it didn't ever raise any eyebrows. Other than that, everybody was equally a potato. Some potatoes were just very feminine. It fit the world perfectly. The remastered version has hidden much of what I said in the previous video gave flair and an attitude to certain things. Others have been just straight up changed in what kind of feels like an attempt at censorship. I totally missed the huntsman's vest and pants in the clothing video because, to be honest, I actually didn't recognize them at all when I came across them. I guess I didn't think twice about it at the time because this is the version that the male characters wear and I recognized it from that, so it just slipped past me. Like some sort of a Mandela effect, I guess. Now here's the thing, this is what they changed it to, and it was always called a vest, so I guess this makes it closer to its name. But I don't think that that's why they changed it. If they were really worried about sticking true to the name of items, then perhaps the black finery would be black and not brown, right? This is something else, and it's something that I will explore in this video and show you more examples of. But specifically looking at the huntsman's vest, to me, this was a totally unnecessary change that I think nobody would ever complain about if they left it like before. People keep saying that the changes that appear to be so radical in the remaster were done in the name of embracing a more realistic look. But I feel like that all goes out the window when you think of an NPC that wears this clothing, so Branwen came to mind, and this particular change has made her and her situation look really silly and out of place. For context, this is a Redguard woman that can be found in the Imperial City Arena district, sparring with an Argonian named Salith, in the hopes of making it in the arena. In the original, their outfits, or lack of clothes, perfectly fit their situation. This place is like a mini gym, and her attire is perfectly comfortable for what she's doing. It's sort of like a sports bra vibe. In the remaster, without any context, you go up to this and it just looks like two homeless people fighting. You can see here that first of all, this censorship doesn't extend to male characters as they didn't decide to put a shirt on him, but she's wearing this warm furry vest to work out. Before this, in the original, the shirtless Argonian was completely fine, and I don't think you ever needed to ask them what they were doing to get the picture. Now, her look has had a direct impact on his, and they just look like beggars from the waterfront district having a disagreement. It looks ridiculous, and it was something that did not need to be changed at all, and has actually kind of ruined the particular scene here. No, it's not game-breaking, but it's the sort of jank that's like, not really charming. It's definitely funny looking, but not in a good way. Armor is also a bit of a hot topic right now, kind of for the same reasons. So, in the original Oblivion, some of the armor looked quite different depending on whether you played a male or female character. Granted, not all of the armor had these differences. For example, the steel armor kind of looked the same on both men and women, so it's important to have this context and those facts before we go and get our pitchforks. Don't worry, there will be time for pitchforks later. Some really notable differences can be seen in things like the iron armor, the amber armor set, the chainmail armor, the pit armors and stuff worn in the arena, and several others that you'll notice too. What they appear to have done is taken away the elements that incorporated the female form and made all armor look more bulky and pretty much like it does on male characters. So the major argument for doing this, and I can sort of see where they're coming from, is again going for realism. So it is true that armor for the most part was never really made for women or to fit the female body. That is because in many places in the world and many societies, it was widely accepted that war is for men, and only men go to war and need to wear armor. There were a few exceptions, of course, instances where armor may have been made to fit a particular person, like it's believed that Joan of Arc had her armor made specifically for her, courtesy of King Charles VII of France. But for the most part, if a woman did wear armor, it was just armor that was standard and made for men to begin with. You guys will know that I am somebody that advocates for realism in fantasy worlds, but what I mean by this is that I want to see it grounded within the predefined parameters of any given fantasy world. So my counter argument here is this. Unlike the real world, in Oblivion, women do go to war. In Elder Scrolls in general, women go to war. You see this in your first 2 minutes of playing Oblivion, where you meet Captain Renault wearing a full set of Blades armor and escorting the Emperor to safety. That's kind of a big deal. I've sort of touched on this in a video before where I spoke about how there don't appear to be the same predefined gender roles in Tamriel as there are in our real world. Therefore, realism in this case would mean that the female form is also taken into account when making armor, as women are out there just as much as men. And again, this was a thing in the original, it was already decided that this is a thing, so I don't see why they couldn't continue with it. I find it a particularly silly change for things like the amber armor. Like, the concept of amber armor is very fantastical, surreal. Surely with how magical and out of this world this looks, we can allow for it to fit nicely on a female character. So realism is great and all, but it shouldn't get to the point where you're taken out of the fantasy world, especially not in a remaster or remake scenario where you already have a point of reference. Upon further inspection, they did this with statues as well. So if the statue had some curves or a more risque appearance, this would be toned down. For example, the Meridia statue in Oblivion looked like this, and in the remaster, they made it look kind of like it does in Skyrim, but it's definitely safer for work overall. After seeing this, it kind of occurred to me that perhaps they decided to make all of the Daedric shrines look more Skyrim-like. But then I visited Azura, and she was way more toned down and covered up than even the Skyrim version, whereas in the original Oblivion, she looked like this. And if more Skyrim-like was the goal here, why didn't they change the Molag Bal statue to look like it does in ESO? I mean, this depiction of him is arguably better known even, but they decided to stick to the original. Now here's where the consistency falls through, and this is what kind of makes me question the purpose of changing these things at all. Now maybe they missed this, but interestingly, they also didn't change the mermaid statue in Anvil. In fact, I think they maybe even improved her a little bit with the pose, but that's just my opinion. Other than that, where I thought they might censor her, they didn't. Now at this point in the video, I know somebody has probably thought of the Spiderdra. So yes, I did decide to take a closer look at that as well. So my take on this is, they don't look bad, they retain pretty much the same essence, although I would have liked to see that bright red incorporated into their outfits, but it's fine. However, if we address the elephant in the room, their chest is visibly smaller. Let's stop for a second and think who the Spiderdra are. They are closely associated with the Daedric prince Mephala. Mafala, who is the prince of lies, sex, murder, and secrets. A prince that uses seduction to get closer to mortals and trick them, get them entangled in her cunning web. These Spiderdra are the perfect ambassadors for such a prince, and so having a more exaggerated chest like they did in the original would have been arguably more lore accurate and in character. No, this is by no means a horrible change that completely ruins the game, but I wonder about the message that it sends when, even in a scenario where the female body tells a part of the story and lore, they choose to tone it down like it's a bad thing. And it's not like Oblivion is a game where historically all women had super exaggerated bodies and jiggle physics and lots of focus on that sort of thing. So this also meant that having something more open and out there, or откровенное, like we say in Russian, made it that much more effective. If people are worried about over-sexualization, let's be real, those who really want to make things more exaggerated and blown out of proportion will mod that right into the game. But that does not mean that we can't have tasteful depictions of the female form in the game by default. And when I say tasteful, I mean they fit perfectly into their world and story. All of this censorship and hiding of the female figure is a really weird way to remaster something, almost sending the message that women should be more covered up and toned down in general. It's especially difficult to understand when you see that again, for the male characters, this was not at all changed. Speaking of Daedra, look at the Zivalai, as buff, as detailed, and as shirtless as ever. Why is this okay, but this is not? I will say, they did put shorts on the zombies, which again, consistency? I don't know, it's really weird. Let's look at the Shivering Isles, the famous saints and seducers. The interesting thing about their societies is that they are matriarchies, and this is so deeply ingrained in their being that we even see it in how armor is modeled after females and not males. So the male variant of the seducer armor and the saint's armor is actually much more revealing and feminine on the men. One weird thing that I noticed, again related to the chest area, is that it almost seemed more detailed and more modern in the OG version of Oblivion than it does in the remaster. Like, whatever way it's done here is clearly to draw less attention to it, but it's just a bit strange when put side by side with the original. Like on the original, look at the contour and the definition on the skin, and here, there's just nothing. These are all small examples on their own, I know, but when put together, it does make me think about what the future holds in terms of depictions of female characters. I think that the Elder Scrolls always did a great job of depicting women in a way that was tasteful, even if there was an accent on sensuality and their bodies. It always felt right to the world and to women that played the games also, which is backed up by the fact that Elder Scrolls has a huge female fanbase. There's two things that this kind of reminds me of. So one, have you ever seen those CD or album covers in the Middle East? So you have the version that was made in the West and then what was actually sold in the Middle East, how the female artists are much more covered up because that's in their culture and that's just how it has to be. But the other example is when World of Warcraft changed the paintings of women to bowls of fruit, while all of the allegations about the ongoing harassment at Blizzard were coming out. This doesn't help the situation at all. This isn't accountability. It's just the erasure of something beautiful that can absolutely be appreciated in a respectful way. But when you take it out, I guess you're just sending a message that maybe women are too much. Can't respect them if they look like this, or what exactly are they trying to say? All in all, I do want to state that I think that the remaster is fantastic. There are so many elements to it that are super beautiful, and I've been admiring the world, admittedly even off stream. I just wish that small and unnecessary changes like this weren't made to, make it more authentic to the original game, but also to not send the wrong message about women and women's bodies. And that is my take on this whole situation. I do hope that I was able to articulate myself as well as I put those thoughts together in my head. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. As always, big thanks to my channel members for all of your continued support, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Be seeing you, bye!